Hey everyone, we have our own YouTube channel. It is youtube.intrepid Society, and for those of you who want the podcast version of these musings, which is the audio only, simply put down intrepidsociety.podbean.com/feed into your iTunes. Later. Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 13 of Musings of a Guild Leader. My name is Senda, and this episode is going to be all about recruitment. We've had quite a few applications in the past. Currently our guild is around about 50 members. This fluctuates a bit from time to time, obviously, but there's been so much going on in recruitment, especially lately, that I figured there's a ton of questions that need to be answered to people. People have come from left and right with questions. And there's just generally, recruitment is a very interesting subject for any kind of guild out there. So I figured, why not devote an entire episode to that. So, jumping right in. First of all, recruitment is different for each and every guild out there. And it usually boils down to, specifically the way people handle recruitment boils down to what kind of guild people are in. You know, it's a good starting point. Let's just go out on a limb and say that there are only a few kinds of guilds out there. Let's say 3, of which one I haven't actually had any kind of experience with. Basically, hardcore raiding guilds, casual guilds, and PvP guilds. Now, there's a lot of raiding guilds out there, there's a lot of social guilds out there, and there's not actually that many PvP guilds out there, because in regards to raiding and social, PvP is actually a somewhat smaller aspect. This of course might change as soon as WoW actually becomes the e-sport potential that it has. But for now there's just a ton more social guilds and a ton more raiding guilds out there than pure PvP guilds. And that in itself creates sort of a few boundaries for recruitment. I mean, if you are a social guild, your standards are somewhat lower, basically, as a sort of baseline. You don't really have a whole lot of standards for people that want to apply to your guild. You're basically saying, we're a nice bunch of people, we like to hang out, join us. And that's fine, it's absolutely perfectly acceptable. But you're not going to be like the hardcore raiding guild saying, look, we raid 3, 4, 5 times a week, whatever, this is our schedule, you have to be able to meet this schedule, you have to be there for X amount of days, you have to have X amount of gear, you have to be X amount compatible with our current group, and you have to have a certain amount of skill to play your class. That in itself creates boundaries that make sure a very large amount of the player base actually will never ever even consider applying, because they will never ever meet those standards. Of course, there's still going to be people that apply to you that don't meet those standards, but they usually get rejected. Now, and then there's PvP guilds, somewhat smaller, but they basically function, or should function, to the same standard as a raiding guild. They set the bar a bit higher than a normal guild, a social guild would be basically, and they basically exclude a large amount of the member base by simply being a PvP guild. If you're not interested in PvP, you shouldn't be in their guild, basically. That's what it boils down to. Right. Now, having made that distinction, I'm going to delve into how we as a guild do recruitment, and as I've stated in the past, we are a social guild by our very nature. We do raids, we do PvP, we do all sorts of stuff, but end of the day, we are a simple social guild. And that's at the core of our success, basically. The very nature of us being a nice bunch of people to hang out with is the fact that we simply are a nice bunch of people, generally speaking. Still, though, I'd like to think that the way I run recruitment in this guild is of a somewhat more selective nature than a quite large amount of guilds out there. And the way it is selective is the fact that I actually take the application and the entire recruitment process quite seriously. I mean, a lot of people out there that run guilds, a lot of social guilds out there, you can actually see them either spamming the trade chat in the major cities or running around simply asking people, spamming the forums with all sorts of stuff. Stuff like that, I would like to think, is a bad call to make. I mean, if you have a good name for yourself, you shouldn't be putting it out there because it's already out there. You should be putting your name out there through stuff that you're doing, not simply putting your name out there because you want to put your name out there. That's a bad way to go about it. You have to create a positive reputation in a somewhat going around things manner instead of going straight to the point saying, we are awesome, join us. It never actually works that way. It's not a good plan. So, here's how we do it, basically, starting from the top, going all the way down to the bottom, the gritty, the details and everything. Starting with how our application procedure actually works. And it's not actually that hard. We have a website. People that want to join our guild simply write up an application, they post it on our forums on the open section, and our member base then has the chance to, you know, go over the application, see if they like the person, maybe ask a few questions or clarifications if they feel the need to. Based on that, I make a call on if that person is eligible for a trial period within our guild. The person gets invited or rejected. Let's say he gets invited, for argument's sake. Person gets invited, gets a 1 month trial period. We see how he does, see if nothing extra special happens that we didn't actually, you know, think about in the previous settings. Usually they pass their trials and they go on to be full members and successful members within our guild. That's basically what happens. Now, a lot of people have various or variations of what we do. For instance, the trial period we have 1 month is pretty standard. Most guilds will have a 1 month trial period. Most raiding guilds out there will have a 1 month trial period as well. It is simply there to see if someone can wiggle their way in, socially speaking, within your guild. I mean, is he doing the stuff that you want him to do? Is he not being a total jackass to everyone? Is he, if you are, for instance, a raiding guild, is he showing up for the raids as you want him to? Is he meeting your standards? Is he following the rules within your guild? Obviously, this is a probation period for that person, a 1 month trial, and within that 1 month, if he messes up horribly, he gets shoved out without any sort of consequences, basically. As soon as someone is an established member, they've sort of proven themselves, and it will be quite a bit more difficult, just like in real life. If you have a job, if you are on your probation period with a new company, which is a few months as well, if you mess up for whatever reason, you can get ousted without pretty much a lot of explanation. If you have a solid contract in your hands, then it will be a lot harder for a boss to kick you out, basically. It's sort of the same thing. It's not entirely the same thing because we're not getting paid for this. This is all on a voluntary basis, but you have to imagine the entire process along those lines. Now the interesting part is that people write up an application, they get shoved into this set of stuff that they have to do, right? They have to write an application, they have to get accepted, they have to go through a trial period, and then they become a member. So this entire process that someone sort of wants themselves to be a part of or run through will have to take about, you know, anywhere from at least a month and a week or two for this entire process for this entire process to develop. Because you put an application on our forums, you don't automatically get accepted or declined within 5 seconds. I mean, it will take a few days, sometimes a week, sometimes even 2 weeks for me to have a decent enough opinion formed by the various guild members' feedback on what to do with you being the applicant. Which basically brings me to what I consider the most important part of the entire application process, which is writing up your application. I mean, as soon as you're in, as soon as you're accepted, the entire application thing is past you. You are in the guild, you are grouping up with people, you're making a name for yourself, you're talking to people left and right, you're getting your contacts, you're wiggling your way in socially. That is probably quite a whole lot easier. I don't even have to say probably, it is a whole lot easier to be in a guild and function than it is to apply for a guild and function. I mean, I see a lot of people struggling with this. I have seen a lot of people struggling with the entire application procedure in the past, especially when it comes to applying for something like a raiding guild. Now, I'd like to think that I take the applications as serious as a raiding guild does for my social guild, so the pressure is pretty much on there for people that look at these musings or browse the forums and see our guild and go like, well, I would like to apply there. And I would like to say to each and every one of you out there that actually watches this and is considering applying, hell, go for it. I mean, if you want to, fine. But please, for the love of God, put some effort and especially some thought into your application, because that's the most important thing. What you're doing with an application is you're getting a first glimpse of who someone is. And that first impression is so incredibly important. You can get a lot of stuff from any kind of application out there, and the most important one is your first impression of how that person is. And you can tell this from their application. I mean, a very short application will usually tell you, at the very least, this person didn't take a lot of time making this. It's a very short application. The longer an application is, the better it is. There can be a lot of crap in that application, but if it's very, very long, that person took a lot of effort making it. And you have to think to yourself, this person took all this effort and all this time to make an application to our guild. He must really want to join our guild. That's the image you want to present when you're making an application. The same goes for stuff like pictures and extra information. The more crap you can cram into your application that will allow people who you have never met before in your entire life to form an opinion on who you are and what kind of person you are based on the amount of information that you're giving them, the more stuff you shove into their faces, the better it is. Simple fact, simple baseline. If you compare two applications to each other, one is really short. Hi, I'm Joost, I'm 25, I live in Holland, I play a priest, and I'm reasonably decent at healing. LOL. That's application number one. Application number two is the same thing, but now I'm taking half an hour to explain to you guys how I used to live across from a petting zoo and how the chicken cooing at 3 o'clock in the morning because it was totally messed up in its mind completely changed certain aspects of my life. This essay goes on for 10 pages, explaining who I am with pictures. There's everything in there. There's an entire loadout of my character with all the items he's wearing. Everything is chucked in there. And you've just spent an hour going through the entire application. These are two incredibly ridiculous extremes. An application will most likely never be that short, and it most certainly will never ever be that long, because that would be ridiculous. No one would read through that. You have to have an application that's somewhere in the middle, though. You want the good aspects in there. You want to write about who you are, personal information, and make that broad. Don't just say, this is my name, I live there, I'm this old. Put more in there. Why do you live there? Where did you come from? Blah, 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 blah. There's so much stuff you can give people, so much information. The more info you put in there, the more common ground you can potentially have with people that are in that guild. There might be some other guy in that guild who you've never met before, and he actually lives in the same town as you. You only know this because you mentioned it on the application. Good stuff, right? What characters you play, put effort into it. Give an armory link or something, maybe a picture of your character. Explain to people in the guild why that character means so much to you. Your past, very, very important. Very, very important, because I have a tendency to track people down and check if they're lying. I recently declined someone because he was lying on his application about his past. This is never a good thing, and I will track you down and find it out. Let's see, what else is there? Your interests, your personal interests. It doesn't matter if you're applying to a raiding guild or not. It's usually useful to put this stuff in there. And then last but not least, my guild at least has something called this, it's bonus points. If you put a picture of yourself in there, or a picture of something that you like, a funny screenshot, tell us a joke, stuff like that scores bonus points, even though they say it or not. Stuff like that scores you bonus points. You have to put the effort into making that application as awesome as you can possibly make it. And with that rant, I am completely out of time. I hope you guys enjoyed this and thought it was useful. I hope to see lots of cool applications in the future, and I shall see you all again next week.